They're on a mission to help us through time and space. They misspend their childhood to save the human race. Geek Force, they're on a quest. Geek Force, they circled the idiot test. Geek Force, first and worst, second the best. Traveling to the past without a safety net. Welcome to Geek Force's review of Hasbro's Marvel Legends. These are a new series of figures under the Kenner banner because these are a retro series.
Yeah, that's right. These were released last year, 2020 in September, and it was announced on Hasbro Pulse. The first set were Wave 0 and it contained 8 figures which were sold in packs of 2, which I believe was Captain America and Black Panther, and Iron Man and Cyclops, Spider-Man and Electro, and Iron Man and Black Panther, because there was some variations, wasn't there, in terms of colour. We actually thought we weren't going to get these across in the UK.
Because these have been rumoured for way before September last year.
They kind of, when that first Pulse wave came out, we said, you know, will we actually see these, and if so, will it be some kind of ridiculous cost and import that's you know, that's going to make it almost nigh impossible to collect them? Fortunately, that has not been the case, and we've been lucky enough to pick up what is Wave 1, which is the wave that came out after the Pulse, and these are
these have only just come out
the last week or so in the UK.
So these are the first 6 figures,
and they're really good. I mean, the packaging we think is pretty impressive as it stands anyway. The figures are based on Bronze and Silver Age Marvel, and the 5 points of articulation. You can see that the cards have been designed with those with the artwork in mind from the comics from that period, and even on the back, what's really great about this is that on the back we've got a picture of Spider-Man, a cut-out and keep almost, with some information about him as well. And
which does remind me of sort of like the Action Force that you used to get.
Palatoy Action Force sort of had those, didn't they? And the Hasbro G.I. Joe did. But I mean, the only thing I probably would say that I miss on the back
is if they don't show you the rest of the figures.
Yeah, the rest of the characters.
Like a Star Wars sort of.
Yeah, I can never understand why that, as a kid, and I don't know if anybody else felt the same way, but part of the joy of these was when you got the figure, you could check which was in the set, and you'd be able to almost tick them off as you got them.
And especially like when Star Wars released ones where they blacked out the Ewoks or something, you were like, who
were those going to be before the film came? I suppose that would be nigh impossible with Marvel, because you know who the characters are. But I mean, we think, just looking at the packaging, they look superb. The 5 points of articulation just takes you right back, and I'm hoping that when we open these that we see that they've got some real play value to it, because I think that is what we keep saying, that so many figures nowadays, the play value is just not there, you know. And what's lovely about these is that they don't need all of the weapons and accessories that seem to have plagued Star Wars and G.I. Joe for years under Hasbro.
Yeah.
You know, my worst nightmare would have been if I'd have picked a Spider-Man figure up and it's got some kind of massive missile launcher with a web
on it.
A web shooter thing. Because but I wouldn't have been surprised.
When you look at sort of, I mean, we've said it, I mean, this is going back years now, from the early 90s, I'd say, with G.I. Joe. You had it with Jurassic Park figures.
Yeah. Terminator, I would have said. Most of Kenner's output and into Hasbro and started to evolve.
And then into the Star Wars has just got ridiculous.
Well, you know, Crimes Against Star Wars figures, definitely adding nerf to every single vehicle, seemingly, that came out from the new sequels to the Rogue One and Han Solo and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of refreshing, I think, to actually pick up a figure that's not got those things on it.
Yeah.
And the price, okay, I mean, we've been saying this for a long time now, that figure prices for a 3 3/4 piece of plastic. Yeah, okay, there's a production cost and the cost of the materials and the people that you're paying and everything else involved, but some of these figures are getting to a point where they're not really pocket money toys anymore.
No.
And these come in just under £10, which, you know, you're looking at nearly £60 for 6 figures, which is a lot when you consider, okay, you can say, well, inflation. But the most we ever paid for a Star Wars figure back in the day was probably about £1.79.
Must have been.
So, you know, and I can remember, we've always said, the first figure I can remember that kind of went beyond that for a figure not that much bigger than this were the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves figures by Kenner. They I think they retailed about $7.99 at the time, which was at the time expensive for
and when you think they were actually
pretty good. Really,
they were good, but what I was going to say, they were just Star Wars figures.
Well, yeah, superpowers and and I think that is the downside. That I would say that $9.95, it's still at a cost where they're a little bit too much. Especially, you know, we were just saying that Mandalorian figures at the moment, the retro Mandalorian collection that Hasbro have made, Asda look as though they've cut some of those prices already, and they've kind of put those to something like £7.50.
Right.
So whether these will follow, the other thing that does concern me, we've bought these, and it's very rare that we actually go out and buy a set of figures at full price. It's got to be said, because certainly over the last years since Force Awakens has come out, and the figures that followed that, you're able to go to places like B&M and Home Bargains probably a few months later, literally a couple of months at times later, and buy those same figures that were on shelves, sitting on shelves for...
Same with, I would say, with a lot of things. Stranger Things figures you can get from B&M. The Indiana Jones ones. From
and sure they buy them in a bulk lot, and they don't, you know, they kind of don't know what they're going to get, I suppose, until they open those crates. But you were picking them up for sort of $2.99, $1.99 a figure, which is a big difference, and maybe a bit more reasonable. I would have suggested that I don't know how these things work, but to me maybe £5 for something like this, £6 that pushes more reasonable. I would have said £10. It's getting to be beyond pocket money. But saying that, they're a nice figure, and you know, we were really pleased to see these on shelves in the UK, and we're really pleased to see these online shops in the UK that are selling these as well. So we'll take a look, we'll open a couple, and we'll see what they're like. Let's unbox one of the figures. We're going to do it Toy Polloi style. Look, I've even got the board, although to be fair, the board, it's not as clean as Toy Polloi's. Mine's always stained in paint for some reason. I think it's probably because he cleans his each time, and obviously I don't do it quick enough. No offence, Dave. Oh, this is not as easy as it looks, is it? David, how do you make this look so easy? That is not easy to do. You see, I don't usually open them like this, I'll be honest. I just rip them. And that, I know that will really annoy the Mint on Card Brigade. But I like to have a look at what they do, you know? And I think it's lovely. The people who want to collect a Mint on Card, it's great. I've got nothing against that at all. But my personal preference is that I like to open them up and have a look at what they do. Oops, you didn't see that. Here we go. So, Spidey, let's see. That's as good as I can open it. Apologies to anybody who's been really offended by that. And there we go. He's free. The web slinger is free.
So, we've unboxed the figures in a Toy Polloi styly way. And these are the figures unboxed. And
they're pretty good. I think I've got to say, my initial first impression of these, when I saw them in the box, I thought they do look really good, and the kind of, for me, just opening these up, the kind of the figure that I've been waiting for since I was sort of 4 years old and first started reading Captain America and Spider-Man and the Marvel comics that I loved from when I was a child. So for me, these are kind of the figures I always wanted when I was a kid, but they never came out. Everything.
Well, the nearest we got was Secret Wars for the Marvel ones.
Yeah, I mean, we always said that the Secret Wars for us, the Secret Wars that Mattel made and the superpowers that Kenner made were the best superhero figures, and they were slightly bigger than 3 3/4 inch, I think, weren't they? But
they were a lot bigger than this.
Yeah, they were. But I think the thing is with the Mattel ones, they were as good as they were sort of in that weird pose. It was kind of almost like because of the He-Man.
I don't know if I was bothered about the weird pose at the time. I mean, but it was a shame that they never did any more Secret Wars, really. It was just sort of
those 2 waves and that was it.
The comics didn't carry on any further.
They've been sculptured individually for each figure.
I mean, these are like a cross between, I suppose, Secret Wars and our Star Wars are nowadays.
And I would say the kind of detail that Superpowers had.
Yeah.
I mean, what's nice, it's things like just looking at something like Spider-Man.
They're all in proportion.
I was just about to say it's the proportion.
Bigger than all of them.
Yeah, and not just in terms of height, but in terms of his width as well.
Yeah.
And you look at Spider-Man, and it's the same kind of scenario that they've made sure that Spider-Man is noticeably leaner than Captain America, and I think that's really good. I mean, for me as well, just looking at that Spider-Man figure, it's the fact that these are retro, but the webbing on it. If you think about the Secret Wars ones. The webbing was never in that much detail. It was just in patches. Whereas that actually is on all over it. You know, the detail's pretty good, I would say.
And it even follows on from the arms.
I mean, so in terms of it being a retro figure, they've kind of got the best of both worlds, because you've got the detail, but you've actually got the retro style 5 points of articulation, and the articulation's pretty good. It actually feels like a Star Wars figure.
Yeah, it does.
What's nice on that as well, on Spider-Man, his hands actually do move, so you can actually do the so they've actually slightly more articulated. They are 5 points of articulation, but the hands are actually articulated too, which is a really nice.
All of them?
I don't know. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I think so. Looks like it.
Yeah, even on Cap. So so that's great that you can actually rotate the wrists as well, because obviously it just gives it that slightly more play value.
Hulk and Human Torch then, but
but Cap
the rest.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What I was going to say about the Human Torch, what that reminds me of straight away, and I don't know if you thought it too, but it just reminds me of the Tony Tron figures.
Yeah.
You know, and it's again, it's just so nice to have that it's got you could actually shine a torch through that and it will actually glow.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of the Tron Star figure that Tommy made. So it's really nice to see that, and I think just the nice details there, the flames licking up his legs and his arms and everything. I would say to anybody who is a collector of Marvel figures, my initial reaction to these is that they've been by far the best figure that I've seen in a long time. Produced by Hasbro.
With play value.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you've got children who love Marvel and they love the comics in particular, not just the films, these are the figures that you'll want to be getting.
Because instead of like the G.I. Joe multi-jointed, everything moves on it, these are just,
they're simple.
You're not going to break these.
You'd be struggling to break it.
Yeah.
You'd be struggling to break it. And I think that's what makes them more exciting in a way, because you can do that little bit more with them. They've got the amount of posing that you need. The only noticeable thing, I suppose, in terms of retro, is that Magneto, and it's the best figure of Magneto, to be fair, it looks just like Magneto, far better in a way than the Secret Wars one, because it's got the cape. But it is I'm quite pleased. I'm quite pleased it's a plastic cape. But I suppose if you were going full retro, they could have done it like the later Star Wars Kenner ones, where it was a cloth cape. For me, it's just the fact that these are based on the Bronze and Silver Age comic characters, the actual comic drawings, rather than being based on the movie ones, which again, I've said to you, I know I love the Hasbro, the 3 3/4 inch ones from the movies that they've made so far, and the detail on those is really good for a 3 3/4 inch, and the amount of articulation is, you know, phenomenal, I suppose, for that size figure. But for me, I just prefer a 5-point of articulation figure, and I think these are something that I can see as collecting the next waves of, because they are, as I say, for me, they're a figure that I've been waiting for the majority of my life. I think, you know, the only other figure I can compare it to, my disappointment in figures was from the Mego pocket superheroes, you know, and you kind of bought those
because you wanted the
figure, but even as a kid, even as a kind of 4-year-old, 5-year-old buying it, I was kind of
disappointed.
They're not quite right.
Yeah. Because they're crouching down and they're
they're in a very strange position. Sort of small He-Man almost, aren't they? But there we go. If you're thinking of buying the figures, as we've said, you know, we think the packaging's great. They are really reminiscent of the things we sort of grew up with. Certainly in the late 70s and into the 80s. Definitely reminiscent of the Star Wars style and, you know, G.I. Joe Action Force style of figure.
If you grew up in the 70s and 80s and always wanted figures like this, if you're a retro buff, if you collected Star Wars, G.I. Joe,
Action Force, if you were a fan of the Secret Wars and Superpowers figures,
if you love Marvel comics and you love the Marvel films, then these are the
figures for you.
Well, true believer, it's time for us to go now. But we'll see you next time when we review waves 2 and 3. Until then, Excelsior.
Geek Force, they're on a quest. Geek Force, they circle the idiot test. Geek Force, first the worst, second the best. Traveling to the past without a safety net. Geek Force, to the past.